thing about meetings is we love to hate them, but it's where business gets done. So the fact that we're letting the value of these meetings dissipate into thin air when the meetings end doesn't make sense. Your meeting culture and the way you meet has to be purposeful and intentional based on the way your organization operates.
That's Darren Chait. He was the co-founder of Hugo, and now he's vice president of marketing at Calendly, who recently put out a study on the state of meetings in 2024. Darren shares some insight on how to make meetings more productive. So you'll learn 1, why 81% of folks want more meetings, 2, 3 meetings to keep and the 1 to stop, and 3, surprising statistics on meeting etiquette. And if you'd like to see a summary write-up of some of these takeaways, I recommend you sign up for the Gold Nugget free email newsletter at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Mockaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Darren. Darren, welcome.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to get into your unique vantage point, your insights, your wisdom. So you work at Calendly, which is my all-time favorite meeting scheduling software. I use it in 2 businesses. So great job, guys.
Good to hear it. Thank you.
I'm curious, while you've been there, how many meetings have been scheduled in Calendly?
Personally, thousands.
Thousands? Millions?
I'd say thousands. I've been at Calendly for 2.5 years. I think I probably would have exceeded hundreds. I spend a lot of my day in meetings like we all do, which is why it's such a good topic for discussion. And I really try and schedule most via Calendly because who's got time to jump around with the back and forth and trying to coordinate multiple schedules? And being an Australian, living between the US and Australia, time zones are a nightmare. So I need Calendly to work, and luckily so do other folks.
And how many meetings has the Calendly software product platform scheduled for humanity?
It's a very good question. That's not a number that we've actually published before. So you've heard it here first. If I had to do the math quickly, I wonder if we've crossed 1 billion. It's possible, but I'm not sure. So keep that one between us, all right? But I want to look into that. It's the number I should know off the top of my head.
All right. We'll say rounding to the nearest billion.
Exactly.
It's 1 billion.
That's right. It's closer to 1 billion than 0, but it could even be more. I'll have to check on that one.
All right. So that's cool. So 1 billion meetings, and you've been in many yourself personally there. I'd love to hear off the top of your head, what are some of the most striking, surprising, fascinating discoveries you've made about us workers and meetings from your vantage point here?
We've recently published a report on this. We do it every year. And the 2024 State of Meetings report went in and asked over 1,000 workers a whole lot of questions about meetings. And what I love about this process, this piece of content, is because we do it year on year, things are changing right in front of us. So the number one thing that jumped out at me, which I can't reconcile, I don't know what your thoughts are, Pete, but 81% of workers want more meetings. Here we are talking about meetings being the bane of our existence, competing with productive work. There's 1,000,001 memes about meetings that should have been emails and those sorts of things. But the overwhelming majority say, give me more.
Fascinating. Okay, now I imagine that the devil's in the details in terms of, do they want more meetings like the ones they're having right now? Or are they looking for something else on the menu that's not, they haven't received yet to appease their appetite?
Yeah, exactly. It's both. So number one, firstly, productive meetings was the caveat there. We want more productive meetings. Are we having productive meetings today? Yes and no. But I think there's a more interesting take, which was my opinion anyway. We sort of said why, like how do meetings help you? And if you look at all the different reasons why people love meetings, 51% said connection with colleagues, 44% said more collaboration, and the list goes on. And what it really led me to think is that we're in this new world where we've now post-COVID. We can't blame COVID anymore, but it's certainly reset the way we work. We have many, many, many remote-first companies out there, many, many, many hybrid companies, and some companies that are operating in a traditional office environment. But we're really just seeking out connection. So yes, we want more productive meetings, but based on what respondents said in this particular survey and what I hear talking to folks every day, meetings are how we stay connected. It's how we build relationships at work. It's how we make the work we do human. So I guess it's not that surprising if you think about it like that.
Okay, so we'd like more meetings insofar as they are productive and connecting. Got it. And could you lay it out for us? Just how much time are we spending in meetings these days?
Most of us, in terms of the respondents, are only having 1 or 2 meetings a day. but about half are having 3 or more meetings a day. And I guess it comes down to what you do for work, right? So this year, for 20% told us they're spending more than 6 hours per week in meetings, which 20% doesn't seem like a whole lot. But I think there's a few things to consider. Firstly, the folks that are customer facing, we heard way higher. We saw 5-6 hours a day in some cases. The folks that aren't customer facing, so in roles that they don't need to be talking to customers, just internally, is where we saw those numbers of 1 or 2 meetings a day. The other thing is you might have 2 meetings a day at 2 hours in total, which doesn't sound like much. But think about the time needed to prepare for the meeting, to travel to the meeting in some cases, attend, take notes, travel from, identify what the follow-ups were, share them out. And before you know it, your 2 hours of meetings a day could be closer to 4. And that's why the cost of these meetings and making them productive and valuable matters so much.
All right. Well, let's talk about making them productive and valuable. What are some of your top insights and discoveries here associated with what makes meetings excellent versus bad?
And the fundamental question is whether you need a meeting at all. It's 2024. We have a ton of technology at our fingertips. There's so many different ways to collaborate and communicate. But in many cases, we just jump straight back to the calendar. I used to tell my team in a different role, there's only 3 reasons you need a meeting, the 3 Ds: debate, discussion, and decision making. So if that's not going to happen, does it need to be a meeting? Can I send them a video, right? With here's what I want you to know, the background on this particular topic, or here is the plan for next quarter, or here is some feedback on something I've read. If I don't need debate, discussion, or decision making, I can share that asynchronously via video. And there's many other different ways we can achieve that. So if you don't need to have a meeting at all, that's the number one way you can reduce the cost of those meetings.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose connection as well. It doesn't fit into the nice 3D framework, and it's not necessarily about making productive value creation happen, but that is a key source of reason and value of a meeting going down.
That's a very good point. I think you're right. And it sounds like that's what people are craving. So even if we could do everything async, we would be losing out on the element of connection. But then again, is a meeting always the best way to achieve that connection? Can we catch up spontaneously? Can I give you a call? Can I text you and say it'd be great to have a one-on-one and check how things are tracking and hop on the phone? Different style of meetings can obviously favor connection and can be achieved that way. But a traditional meeting, if I have 8 people in the room, in a meeting room with some slides up on the screen and so on, debatable the level of connection you get there. But it's a good point and something to keep in mind.
Okay, so with the 3 Ds, the debate, the discussion, the decisions, what are some inappropriate meetings then? Meetings we're having where this is not occurring that should perhaps sound the alarm bell for us and make us say, wait a sec, maybe this meeting should not exist anymore.
The knowledge sharing meeting, I think that's the worst culprit. So where I'm just coming to share out information. So can everyone come because I need to present the 2025 plan for whatever with you? And you come along and everyone's happy because I've got some interest in the 2025 plan. And I go and tell you a story for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes. And that was helpful to know. I need to know your plan. But do we really need everyone in a meeting on the schedule that I dictated, joining the Zoom call or traveling to the meeting, sitting there at the same time, perhaps having distractions because I've determined the time that they have to listen. And really, they're just gleaning this information from me. Could I not have shared that some other way? So that's one. I think that jumps out at me a lot. The other alarm bell for me when I look at a meeting is the attendees. Too many or too few? Too many is where everyone has some sort of interest in the topic. They all join this meeting and you're never going to have any real debate or discussion, right? There's 20 people in the room. Even if there's 12 people in the room, it's just not going to happen. We can't have this productive discussion with effectively a conference that we're running. Or too few people in the room, or the wrong people in the room, how are we going to make a decision? I can't go and talk about planning or strategy when Pete clearly is a stakeholder who couldn't attend and has to be a part of that decision, or talk about what we're doing for social next year where there's no social media marketing folks there. So the attendees is the second red flag that jumps out at me. And then I guess the third thing I'll say, which is back to really tips for a great meeting, they sound obvious, but we don't do them well, which is goals for that meeting. So when you actually ask yourself, you shouldn't have to ask yourself, it should be clear, but if you have to ask yourself what the goal of the meeting is, if you can't answer that very quickly, we shouldn't have had that meeting. We didn't need that meeting in the first place. So what do we need to walk out of this room with, virtual or physical? If we haven't achieved this meeting has been a waste of time. If you can't express that for a meeting, at least once it's started, I think we're making a mistake here.
So when it comes to the right number and the right people in the meeting, you have some work there associated with folks having a specific role. Could you expand on that?
So one of the downsides to virtual meetings in 2024 is the risk of multitasking and distraction. We know that 52% of workers report multitasking always or often in virtual meetings. Now, it doesn't surprise me, but when you look at it like that in the numbers, it's mind blowing. That means in every meeting I go to, more than half the folks in the room are doing something else.
When they're remote.
Yeah, doing both. Now, how well can we do both? Well, I won't debate you on that topic. I know we've all got different views there, but you don't have 100% of their attention. And I've got a goal here for this meeting. We don't want to walk out of the room without achieving this meeting, but I know half the people there are doing something else. So that's number one. And then to more directly answer your question around engagement level for different types of meetings, if I have an assigned role in that meeting, we saw more than 90% say that they're engaged in that meeting. I'm actively listening. So an assigned role, I might be chairing, I might be taking notes, I might be presenting a piece of it. Everyone's kind of listening. Very few said otherwise. But if I don't have an assigned role in that meeting, it's almost inverted. We see at this point, almost 30% of folks who are somewhat disengaged or completely disengaged. And that role, again, could be part of a brainstorm, providing a status update, again, taking notes. Whatever the role is, it makes a very, very big difference. The reason I like this stat, it sounds obvious, again, naturally, if people don't need to be there, number one, they're not going to be engaged. But even if people need to be there, it's really important to run these meetings in a way where other folks are involved, where there's collaboration happening, if you want everyone to be engaged. And as I mentioned, particularly for virtual meetings, you're competing with that 52% who are doing something else otherwise.
Well, that's kind of fascinating. And there's a whole lot of debate right now, like, everybody come back to the office. No, we don't want to come back to the office. Or some people's like, no, we're fine. You don't need to come back to the office. So that's sort of raging now in 2024 and probably will continue in 2025. And so I can imagine if those people who are calling the meetings are aware of these phenomena, that's probably just sort of annoying to them. No, I would like you to be physically in the space such that you cannot be multitasking. But at the same time, it's like, well, I think some people really do perhaps think and function better when we're multitasking. I've been to meetings where someone's like on his walking treadmill desk, and it's like, more power to you. I think your brain's working better when you're moving, and that's cool. Or if folks are able to just kind of move around a little bit or fidget with some things or ponder. I don't know. I don't have any evidence in terms of scientific randomized control trials on this, but I think some people just happen to be in a more comfortable thinking, working groove when they have the flexibility to be in their own space. And yet having a little bit of that forced pressure of, no, you're here and there's no escaping. There is no multitasking available in this room without you looking rude and embarrassing yourself. So it's really juicy and personal. What's at stake here?
I have two views on that. I think a fascinating point. One is what sort of multitasking, right? So I'm a big fan of the walking meeting. A lot of my team will know I'll put in the AirPods and go for a walk and have a conversation at the same time. Certain meetings, right? That works great when we're catching up about the week and I'm helping to hear and unblock. But if I'm going to have a really direct conversation with you about feedback or performance, or we're trying to solve a problem that might be financial and we're sharing our screen, obviously can't do it that way. Similarly, if I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm now working on writing a piece of content, there's no way I'm listening or engaged with what you're saying. No part of my brain can do that. So I think it comes down to definitions of multitasking. It's a fair point that some types of multitasking can be productive. The other side I was going to mention is around remote. And Calendly, full disclosure, Calendly is a remote first company. What we mean by remote first is we design a workplace, a way of working that takes into account the fact that our team is remote. And I think, what we learned through the pandemic, many companies sort of just picked up their culture and dropped it in online and it ran into a lot of issues. Different businesses have different views on the topic. And that's why many companies have required their employee base back to the office, either full-time or part-time. If you design a meeting culture around the way you're set up, I don't think it makes any difference. So if I'm running highly collaborative meetings where everyone's engaged and has a role to play in that meeting, I'm going to see the same levels of engagement or higher even than I would if I force everyone into the room such that they can't be on another device, such that they can't be doing something else. And to your point, Pete, many people do better because you think better when you're on your treadmill while you're in that meeting or while you go for your walking meeting, and we allow for that. So I guess what I'm saying here is your meeting culture and the way you meet has to be purposeful and intentional based on the way your organization operates.
And to your point about own idiosyncrasies and perceptions, you've actually got some fun tidbits about etiquette, like what we consider to be rude or unacceptable. This is fun because I think some people wonder, is it okay if I do this on this meeting? Well, you actually have some answers. Lay the numbers on us, Darren.
So in general, we asked a whole lot of questions around, is it okay to eat in a meeting? Is it okay to schedule over lunch? And those sorts of questions with, things we do all the time. And let me run you through some of this data. So in general, we saw that 23% think eating in a meeting on camera is totally fine.
Okay, so 77% thinks it's not fine.
No go. But if you're on mute and your camera's off, that's fine. Most people thought that was okay. 68% said that's fine. I don't want to see you taking those bites. I thought that was interesting. I've definitely been a bit self-reflective after that because I'm probably been guilty of that over the years. But some more, I guess, relevant ones to the way we work. The dynamics with camera on and camera off is really fascinating. So when most people have their camera on, 39% said it's okay for you to have your camera off, but obviously 61% said the opposite. So if other people's cameras on.
So 61% said, I want those cameras on.
Yep, that's right.
For all the
if some
attendees.
people's cameras on, yours better be on. That's what they're saying. And that kind of makes sense, right? You're trying to build connection here. You're remote in these examples. They're virtual meetings. It's hard to do that when you're the one that's not there. You think about the real world parallel. So wasn't too surprised by that. People weighed it up.
Yeah. What would the real world parallel be? Like you just have a black bag over your head?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
okay,
I'm
not available to be looked at.
It's true. Again, it's funny with technology, right? Because just a few years ago, if you weren't in the office, hopping on the phone is totally acceptable with no camera. But now that we have the likes of Zoom and that at our fingertips, no longer good.
Well, and I think it gets to the notion of, well, hey, if this was a properly sized meeting with the proper people in attendance, it makes sense for everyone there to be on their camera in most contexts, as I think through it. And yet, if it's like, well, you invited 80 people to this meeting when really only 9 are there, it's sort of like the other 71 or more so spectators. So like, it seems to make sense to turn the cameras off at that point.
And that's why I blame the meeting organizer. Well, the onus is on the meeting organizer, right? If you have a meeting where folks consistently have their camera off, or if they are doing things while the meeting's running, rather than go to the attendees and say, why are you doing this? You should be looking at yourself and saying, hang on, what is it about this meeting that disengages? That means that folks can go and do something else, or have their camera off. So I think that's the feedback there. I think related to the multitasking point, before I shared some data with you around how many people are typically multitasking during a meeting. But what surprised me is 70% said that's okay. They don't have a problem with it. So 30% said, no, everyone should be there. I don't personally agree with that. Again, if you're running a great meeting and everyone needs to be there, I think that number should be lower. But I think it's a sign of the fact that we're not all running those great meetings. We're all attending many meetings. We don't have enough hours in the day to get our work done because we're attending all of these meetings that maybe I didn't need to be in. And that's why I'm multitasking, and that's why I think it's okay.
Okay. So that's some good stuff about inside a meeting. Anything else you want to share about best or worst practices when you're inside a meeting?
So from a data standpoint, we asked some questions about folks calling in when they're not at their desks, but others are at their desks. Only 37% thought that was okay. I was offended by that one. Again, I'm a fan of that walking meeting. If people are at their desks, you should be calling in the same way and so on. So similar sorts of insights. But really, we're just seeing the same trends again and again in terms of great meetings, great engagement. Everyone needs to be there. Everyone's there. Poor meetings, unclear goals, not everyone needs to be in the room, didn't need to be a meeting, everyone disengages. And technology's made that so much easier because I can click one button and turn my camera off. And again, I can't do that in the live meeting like we discussed.
And that's really intriguing. The word should is so heavy, like with judgment. But I guess it varies how strongly people hold these shoulds. Like, is it more like, I'd kind of prefer if it were on versus, I can't believe this unprofessionalism on the other side. And so, but I think that really highlights the need to have these conversations because we might very well be entering into this situation blithely unaware. It's like, well, no, I got my video camera off because it's during lunchtime and I'm hungry and I'm going to get really cranky if I don't eat and you're going to have a dumb repeat. if I don't eat. So this is all in everyone's best interest for me to be eating right now. So I'm just thinking I'm making prudent decisions that make sense for me and my team and an organization. And unbeknownst to me, I'm getting some judgments from others participating in the meeting. So it sounds extra super important that we have those conversations candidly and upfront so that we're not incurring the negativity that can just be unspoken and foment and grow,
Well said. And it gets even more complicated culturally because different demographic factors drive different opinions. I saw in the research, for example, 72% of folks in the US feel like it's okay to eat off camera, but only 64% in the UK felt that way. So if you're meeting with Americans, have your lunch. You're meeting with Brits, maybe not a good idea. And there's generational differences and all sorts of others. So it's not, to your point, being clear on expectations and the way we're operating this meeting matters because you're never going to make everyone happy.
Yeah, that's handy. Well, I think it's just good that the fact that you have this report gets some people thinking and perhaps more likely to discuss. Oh, hey, I had no idea that a reasonable portion of you might find my behavior completely unacceptable. Why don't we go ahead and chat about that, shall we?
We actually had that a few weeks ago. We have a weekly meeting with the team, and a lot of the team don't have their camera on. And there's 40-something people in this meeting. And I get it. Everyone's got busy. This meeting's just been dropped on their calendar. We haven't really found a time that suits everyone. It's impossible with so many folks. And about half of them come with camera on, half come with camera off. And for the people that are presenting content in that meeting or sharing and driving the discussion, it's really difficult because there's no feedback, right? When I'm chatting live with video, we can read each other's faces and body language and build a great relationship. If you're just the name, it becomes really hard. So we did two things at the same time. One is we set expectations. I said to the team, hey, I really want to make this into a meeting that you have your camera on. And I'll explain why. And I gave that rationale. And at the same time, we redesigned the way we ran that meeting so it was a lot more collaborative. We had a lot more engagement. Even though it was a big team, we'd have breakouts most times, we'd have polls running, we'd have an open agenda that anyone could add to. And both of those things together, in a terribly designed scientific trial, both of those things together changed the way this meeting operated. So I think it comes down to, as we keep saying, right, being clear on expectations and why it matters, but also creating meetings where we want to be there, where we get value out of them, and naturally I'm going to be engaged.
Okay. Well, Darren, let's dork out a little bit, if I may, on tech tools. So Calendly is one of the finest software as a service tools I'm aware of on the planet. So, yep, I said it. I made it, Darren. You can quote me if you like. So yeah, it sounds like you're doing some cool stuff with regard to the open agenda, the polls. Lay it on us in terms of when you're in meeting, what are some cool tech features you're utilizing and how's it go down?
So firstly, talking about Calendly, as you and hopefully many listeners are familiar, we make scheduling automation software. So we make it very easy to book meetings with you and with your team and coworkers from your website directly by sharing a link, balancing multiple schedules, round robining, allowing lead routing, whatever the use case is. We want to make scheduling very easy. And the reason I share this with you is some of my favorite features and tools out there related to meetings actually happen in the pre and post. So I know one of the common reasons I hear why people buy Calendly reminds me of great meeting practice, which is confirming the meeting, sharing out content before the meeting, and sending that thank you or that follow-up after the meeting. But in general, whatever tooling you're using to do that, you got to do it. You just got to do it. You have to make sure that everyone knows why they're coming, what the goal is, and making sure they're actually attending, and then that you capture the value afterwards. So sure, use Calendly's workflows by all means, but otherwise find a way to do it. Outside Calendly, we spoke earlier about avoiding the meeting. Right here at Calendly, we're big fans of Loom. Loom is an asynchronous video collaboration tool. They're actually now part of Atlassian, but you can buy Loom independently too, and they've got a free tier, I believe. And the reason I love Loom is it helps me avoid those meetings when I don't need meetings, but it does it in what I would call a high bandwidth way. So here's what I mean. If I want to share something with you, Pete, I can go and send you an email or a message, say a Slack message. Say, hey, Pete, I want you to know what I'm thinking about this topic. And here's some feedback on this work you just delivered in bullet points. You're going to come to work. Firstly, I can do it on my schedule, time zone, the way I work, when, whatever my work day looks like. But you're going to come to work, you're going to read this message, and you're going to have 50 questions, right? You're going to wonder if what I really meant was this or that, if I'm unhappy about that, what the tone was there. Or I can send you a video, which is what Loom allows me to do. I can record a video and say, hey, Pete, great work there. I want you to be even better because you're next in line for that director promotion. Here is some tips to make your amazing work absolutely incredible. And, I can run through that. And very quickly, you're seeing my tone, my body language, the words in between the real words, and you've got a completely different message delivered. And we've avoided that meeting with all those questions. So async video tools like Loom, I'm a big fan.
I love Loom so much. And I'm amazed at just how much you could accomplish there. We bought a company about a year ago, and much of the communication between buyer and sellers, like, hey, so here's kind of how I'm thinking about the financing situation. And so like, we're going into all these details of a spreadsheet. And so it's like, this is kind of high stakes kind of a communication. And yet we all recognize that, yeah, this is the best way to do it. We want to say, wait, what was that sell? Where did you get that number? Where's that coming from? And we can't find the right time to meet together quickly. But it's like, so it really kept our back and forths moving faster as opposed to, I guess we could all meet Thursday. No, give me the Loom Monday, and then we'll all have our comments Monday evening.
Exactly. I love it. What a great testimonial. So I think that's an absolute secret for success.
Cool. All right. So Loom or something like it enables you to very quickly, easily do a screen record, share. You can see your face in a bubble and mark up documents or spreadsheets or work products of any sort. Very cool. Any other favorite tools?
So at my core, I'm a marketer. I crave voice of customer. I want to hear from the customer all the time. So looking for solutions that allow me to do more of that. And there's lots out there, and it depends on the nature of your customer and so on. So without going to a specific solution, because I think it depends on the company, if you can find a tool that helps you record customer conversations and allows you to share them around internally, that is game changing. That helps us organize because, in my marketing org, I can go and tell you what the customer says. I can give you slide deck after slide deck, spreadsheet after spreadsheet, until you've heard a real human standing right there talk about the value they get from your product or service, the challenges they have with your product and service. Nothing aligns you more like a marketer. But it's also an area that we're very interested in directionally at Calendly. We are moving beyond just scheduling. We are very interested in tasks around meetings, preparation, engagement, and follow-up. I think you've got to find ways to capture what's discussed in meetings and circulate them and surface them and share them to create that organization that's always working for the customer.
That's cool. So we say record the voice of the customer. Is that just as simple as, hey, we're on a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever, and I'm clicking record, and now here's the snippet? So, but you're saying there's tools that make it even simpler than that?
Totally. Yeah. I know a lot of enterprise organizations use Gong, for example, where sales calls are recorded. You can search and share snippets. So they definitely are. But again, it's a bit like some of the meeting features and workflows I mentioned earlier. It's a way of working more than a particular tool that matters. And we really have seen total change in the way we work and collaborate and how customer-centric we are as we've created that culture of sharing meetings. Because the thing about meetings, right, I should have said at the beginning, is we love to hate them. Yes, they drive all of these great outcomes for our business, but it's where business gets done. If you think about external meetings, every meeting you have with someone outside your business is somehow tied to making money, right? Or recruiting to have the right team to make money, or build relationships that ultimately may lead to customer acquisition, whatever it is. So the fact that we're letting the value of these meetings dissipate into thin air when the meetings end doesn't make sense. So we need to capture them. And the same rationale is, the same reasons why we have to make sure we take notes. We have to make sure that we have follow-ups and make sure those follow-ups actually happen and so on. So just to, all of these ways of working and tools out there are all really reminding us of the fact of the value of every meeting.
Okay. And so inside a meeting with remote technology operating, you mentioned open agenda, polls, whatever. So these are just the features baked into your Zoom or Google Meet or whatever you're using?
Yep. In many cases, yep.
Okay. Just making the most of them. Like they're there for you. Go ahead and learn about them. Try them out.
Make it collaborative, yep. And like that, we won't be eating in meetings anymore, right? Because I'll be so engaged with what we're talking about.
I get to vote. I'm excited. It might not be that immediately transformational. It may or may not be that immediately transformational. But you're right. It is fun. It's intriguing. I don't know about you, but something about real-time data, there's a little bit of a reveal. If it's an interesting question, like, how many of you are calling in from the West Coast? It's like, okay, well, I don't know. But if I'm genuinely wondering in terms of like, okay, we came up with 12 ideas. I'd love for everyone to vote on which ones they think are the most likely to be high impact and they want to start on first. Like, I don't know about you, but that just gets my heart thumping a little bit. Like, ooh, who's going to be it's like election night, like county by county. Yeah.
You know what though, Pete? If you said, does anyone have any views on how we should prioritize this? Silence, right?
Totally.
We use a lot of Miro here as well. Miro is an online whiteboarding tool, and there's a few of them around as well, and some of them are embedded in other products and so on. The reason I like Miro is it allows a very, fluid, free-form way to collaborate in the form of whiteboards, but they have a lot of great real-time tools. You can share your Miro board via Zoom or directly, and it's great for voting. People can put stickies, they can contribute to a conversation, they can drive that collaboration in a real way. So that's what you were reminding me of as you're talking about that behavior, because it definitely does exist.
Very nice. Well, Darren, tell me any other key things you want to make sure to mention, any top do's or don'ts?
So one other thing to mention that we noticed in the research this year, and again, I'm not surprised, but also really cool at the same time. We asked all the respondents in this survey their views on the role of AI in meetings, if they're interested in the use of AI in meetings. 2023, 17% said yes. This year, almost 50% said yes. But we're all learning so much about AI every day and the advent of all the big players in tech in AI. It's now very clear to these respondents, at least, that it's here. We're heading there. Most products are releasing AI features now, particularly those in the meeting space, Calendly included, and we're coming up there soon. So I think it's fascinating to see that AI has unlocked a ton more powerful online meetings. And it's a logical place to start, right? To make us more productive in our meetings, more effective. So that trend in just 12 months was really surprising to me.
Big thanks to Darren for sharing his wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Jenny Kane. The holiday season is officially upon us, and Jenny Kane is a top destination for the very best of all things festive and gifting. They've got a handy gift guide that makes it oh so easy to check off everyone on your list. Jenny Kane has luxurious cashmere pieces, such as my all-time favorite hoodie that I am wearing right now as I record this, and tasteful homeware pieces, such as their legendary candles. Their coats are also super adorable and cozy and a great answer to the cold temperatures approaching. Finally, check out Jenny's Edits, which provides favorites under $250 and lists out handy gift-giving categories. For a limited time, How to Be Awesome at Your Job listeners get 15% off your first order when you use the code AWESOME15 at checkout. Now that's on top of their 10% rewards back rewards program. So to get 15% off your first order, visit JennyKayne, JennyKayne.com, and use the promo code AWESOME15 at checkout. One sponsor to check out is LinkedIn Jobs. Did you know that you can post a job for free at linkedin.com/beawesome? And with a fresh year, perhaps you're like many small business owners looking for some fresh insight and talent to make 2024 extra amazing. Well, LinkedIn Jobs has created tremendous tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and free. I love how they make it so easy with their promotion and selection tools. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. No. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Here's some fun facts. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, and small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/beawesome. That's linkedin.com/BEAWESOME, as in you are being awesome, be awesome, to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. Well, now can you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
One of my favorite quotes in general in business comes from, it's actually been quoted many times by many people, so I won't try to attribute it, which is not to confuse work with progress. I think nowadays we all are super busy. Being busy is this idea that we all aspire for. Everyone wants to be busier than the next person and so on. But as we know, especially in marketing, especially in technology, especially in many industries, the value you create, the impact you have, actually often is disconnected from how much time you've spent getting there. And you see this story of businesses being built overnight versus for decades in both examples. So something I often think about, is this just work keeping me busy, or is this actual progress or output? So don't mistake work with progress is one of my favorite business quotes.
All right. And a favorite book?
Team of Teams, General Stanley McChrystal. Definitely a bit of a less conventional business book, but a must read if you're leading a team.
And a favorite habit?
I don't end my day until I've got a plan for the next day. I think, especially with time zones and the likes of Slack and other tools now that bombard us when we're not online, you always wake up and you always start your day feeling behind. So I at least want to start my day having clarity for the goals for the next day.
And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where should you point them?
Absolutely. So obviously, if you want to learn more about Calendly, calendly.com, but on LinkedIn, always happy to connect and chat and nerd out on these topics. And we can, definitely dive more into what we've learned. You can also, if you go to calendly.com, you can learn more about Calendly. Calendly, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, you'll see a link or in the resources to the State of Meetings 2024. So you can dive into this data, and there's many more cuts and perspectives here that we didn't have time for, but you can nerd out on the State of Meetings yourself as well.
Okay. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Go through your calendar, look at those meetings that are competing with, for productive time, see what you can cut, and then choose a favorite meeting and see if you can make it that much better. Go and look at who's attending, look at your process around setting agendas and planning, look at the tooling that you're using to power that meeting, scheduling all the way through to follow-ups, and see if you can get that favorite meeting performing that much better. And no doubt you'll see the results and you'll move on to the next one. So meetings really are a hack for team productivity, and I encourage you to try it out.
All right, Darren, thank you. I wish you many excellent meetings.
Thanks, Pete. Likewise. Great to chat.
I really love Darren's perspective about these hidden taboos you might have had no knowledge of. People were thinking about quietly judging you behind the scenes. So let's bring those conversations up front, out in the open, and establish some norms, and maybe think carefully about whether you're going to have your webcam on or off, or whether you're going to eat now or a bit later. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to ads that we've referenced, please visit us at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1014. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.